playing together with Morgan Freeman, Megan Fox, and Miley Cyrus, just to name a few, is, I would say, every actor's dream. The only difference between a dreamer and Greg Creek is that he manifested his dream already at a very young age, and he determined himself and took on a whole life mission. He knew that he will be a famous actor in Hollywood one day, but that he ended up conquering the world with his talent to work with the biggest A-listers in the industry was something that came faster than expected. Hard work always pays off, and the fact that Greg didn't have the most perfect upbringing motivated him even more to show others that everything is possible. I am beyond honored to have such ambitious talent here as my guest for your today's episode. Welcome, Greg Creek. Hey superstar, you can be proud of yourself. You found this channel because you want more out of your life. Normal is not in your dictionary, and you know you can get whatever you dream about. Less talking, more action. My name is Russo, your new success host. Welcome to my podcast, Luxury Problems. Welcome to my podcast, Luxury Problems.
Man, I've been waiting so long to do this, Anna. Seriously. And listen, I just want to say, this is the best cup of coffee I've had in a freaking while. So cheers to you.
Thank you so much.
And yeah, I feel really honored to be your guest. Just everything that you've been doing, just your whole journey, your shift, the people that you are reaching and connecting with, and your own personal journey. How you've taken ownership of that. I know that we've been able to connect over that, even though we met on a project.
I know.
But it's amazing to share in that journey, being two foreigners, so
I'm glad you
cheers.
you like it, and I feel like it's always great when you know people and you grew with them together on a journey because you met them on a project, and then you somehow disconnect because everybody's busy, and then you reconnect again and share experiences, and then at the end of the day everybody has a similar path, and everybody just wants to make the best out of life, and
right.
You definitely have been doing the very best out of your life.
I'm trying my best, but right back at you, man.
Yeah.
Seriously.
So we met on a film set.
In the desert there. I remember the studio, but I remember the desert the most.
Oh, absolutely. The desert was hardcore. Shout out to Joe Bland and team. Colonials movie.
Coming out soon.
It was basically also my first big film project in the States.
Wow.
Since I've always been just working.
Mine too. It was one of
Oh
my
my
first.
God.
Yeah, seriously.
That is cool.
Yeah, that's so rad. Now we find out all these years later.
Now I got invited to the podcast to find out about
Exactly.
That is amazing. So, how did Joe find you back then?
I submitted, and then Joe was a freaking rock star. I've got a funny story. Joe, don't kill me. But I submitted for Colonials.
Reaching out to any colonial signals. The exiles have taken everything. Earth is in ruins.
Over! Spaceman! You know how to use one of these, soldier?
Raven, what have you uncovered?
According to the bot's data log, the ship belongs to a colonial named Silas.
That's not just any colonial. Where do you come from, boy?
The sky, I think.
Being from South Africa, and you obviously also come from Germany and Italy.
Mm-hmm.
As an actor, sometimes you don't want to get knocked out of the competition from the beginning. So I remember when I first met with Joe and Cyrus, I was down here in Hollywood. I'd submitted my materials, and they'd gone through a bunch of different actors, and I was very pleased that they thought I was a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I met them, I spoke to them in my American accent, for the first couple. Because the character was American.
Yeah.
And I thought it was very important just to not be knocked out of the competition, but that became a thing for a long time until eventually only after we started filming, you know, that I switched back. This is my natural voice, my South African voice.
Yeah.
And it was super hilarious. But I had a great time, and I mean, you can talk about that as well in the sense that we had such a great energy on set, like to pull off what we did in such a short space of time. It was fun. It was so much fun, and also something different for me because just like you being one of your first Hollywood sets, for me, it also meant a lot in terms of a milestone, having just like moved to Hollywood. To be able to get a lead as an American, you know, was like
That's
a big
huge.
deal, which was fun. And also, I'm sure we'll talk about it today, but it was the first time in my life I got to do a role where I got to tap into my childlike state, like where my inner child, which is kind of a lot of work that I've been doing recently, is reconnecting with the fun, you know, and then that role was legitimately as far from like my serious, you know, I've also got that German blood in me, so, you know, I'm often very calculated and planned, but it's just,
to do that.
exactly, you know, but like, you know, that movie was just pure fun.
Yeah.
And the relationships along the way are still standing today, which is awesome.
As we can see right now.
Hey, boom, boom, boom. So yeah, cheers to that. Cheers to the journey.
Absolutely. So you said that was your first big film project in the States. When exactly did you move to LA?
Well, just before we shot, so it was basically 2019, but straight after we shot Colonials, I had to go back to South Africa to shoot a movie with Megan Fox for a few months, which was a lot of fun. We'll talk about that. Yeah. So, you know, for me, it wasn't like one big massive move. It was kind of like hopping like back and forth until by the time until the pandemic hit, I was like, dude, this is where I need to stay, you know. And look, I'd done a lot of American projects before because that's what qualified me to get my green card. At the time, it was my O1 visa. But you know, to get something on American soil as American, like same with you, right? And so many people, it's a good feeling. It's a big milestone, you know. It's like you feel like you're progressing because I'm sure, as with you, when you grew up, you always had this dream and idea of what it would be like, and then when it starts manifesting, it's like.
Exactly. You like gain so much power by the fact when you realize just the thought that was created and like planted when you were a kid or a teenager, whenever that is, and you put the work in and you just keep believing in it, and you keep doing it, connect with people, then just don't think about it no more.
By the way, on the way, sorry to interrupt, on the way, I thought how awesome was driving, seeing the Hollywood sign, and the song Journey, Don't Stop Believing was playing, and that song is very special to me here, like walking the streets in Hollywood, it represents a lot. You know, both of us coming from such a small town and a small place, it's a big deal. It is a big deal, you know.
It's actually a very beautiful song. So
I
just played it in my
exactly,
head
right? Sorry to interrupt. But
it's like, good.
It's amazing. I love being able to talk to you about this stuff, you know, because it is. I mean, it is the stuff that dreams are made of. I love the fact that there's something powerful, right? Like you were talking about in terms of having an idea, having those seeds of an idea. Visualizing something in the future before it's even happened. And slowly but surely, step by step, making it happen. Until you wake up one day and you're on the couch, literally in the middle of Hollywood, chatting about the journey.
Absolutely. No, that is so true. And we had a time when we met up for what was it, juice and smoothies, and that was like
when I was trying to be healthy, but
no, and I remember how you were telling me that, you know, your whole perspective changed and you had a time when you were in South Africa and everything, like you had everything you wanted materialistically, and you were driving in your fancy cars, feeling you the shit, and then at the end of the day, like this realization hits and you're like, is this it? Is this everything? Just having like this fame, the money, but what about where do I stand? What do I want in life? And just this realization, and that you allow it to happen, because some people just like, oh no, the ego kicks in and like, oh no, this is like, that's what I want to do, and I don't care about what I want like internally and so on, but just the fact that you were like thinking about what just
thank you for that. Yes, you know, look, I will say that, you know, it's interesting how life works. You know, I won't go into the full days of our lives, but I, you know, as so many people in the world, as many of us, you know, I came from a very, very hectic childhood, and I only started realizing the enormity of the trauma that built up over a long time. And it's different now, but often, like, I do look back and I can say that, for me, being driven and like working hard was almost like my response to trauma as a kid, where I was like, unless I become somebody, unless I achieve something, I don't have identity. So I really appreciate you saying that, because yes, prior to coming to the States, I really did have everything I could dream of, like doing what I love, having the margin. I like using the word margin in terms of having space around you financially, everything, and it felt good because, it was the thing of having an idea, working hard, and it becoming a reality. Like, there was nothing that I lacked. And it was interesting. It was interesting when you catch yourself behind closed doors, when you have conversations with yourself. And I remember driving around my neighborhood and I felt like James Dean, riding around my convertible and my leather gloves. Exactly, so literally, shades on, and there was no one around. There was no audience. And I remember asking myself, is this it, buddy? Is this it? Is this really changing you? And I just remember, what makes me me is me. That's got absolutely nothing to do with money or achievements or fame. It's who we are. And I think you were talking about that realization for me. It happens over a period of time, but there comes a day, and I think we'll talk about this next as well, but there comes a day where you've got to realize who you are is different from what you do. And if you can figure that out, and I think all of us, as we grow up in life, that's an ever-evolving concept, right? Like who you are, your identity. You keep growing as you go along. But the sooner that you can do that, before anything happens, when you get yourself in a state of gratitude, before there's money in the bank, when you start feeling like you are worthy of good opportunities. I had to do a lot of work because I grew up in an environment where, just because of my circumstances, my thinking made me think like an orphan, where it was me against the world. I need to work, everyone's out to get me, and everything became so dramatic,
Which is also helpful.
Which is helpful.
Because you're like a fighter, and
Correct.
you also don't want to show it to yourself, you want to show it to the outside world
Exactly.
too, that especially you can do it.
Exactly, which does come in handy. But the big shift for me, and this sums up everything, I think, is shifting from fear in terms of like, I have to win, I have to prove, I care so much about what people think, versus being motivated by love, where you stop proving yourself, firstly actually to yourself, and then the world. And I think I suffered from that for most of my life. Look, I'm grateful, like I'm still a man where I had consequences to my choices, and I made some healthier choices than others, but still my core was driven by fear and hurt. And then I had to shift it to love. And I think that's happened with you as well, like in your journey, for sure.
And especially then when you're driven by fear, you are not able to enjoy the journey. Nobody's journey is easy, there's always ups and downs, but you can make it hard on yourself by just always thinking like, oh, this can happen, I have to prove everybody. Or you just say, hey, this is a challenge for me, let's see what happens, and I go challenge by challenge, and I will take it on, and let's see what happens, and see the positive things even in hard moments. And that is so key, I think, just for everything. And I just watched a YouTube video this morning. I watch every morning. It's like always my thought for brain. And while I'm just getting ready, doing my makeup, hair, I just listen to these things and listen to Sadhguru. I don't know.
Yes.
And he was also saying, basically, you wake up every morning, you do the same thing all over and over again, and you just wonder, with all this technology and everybody's just in their phones and not interacting with other humans no more, that why am I even doing this for? And like how high the suicide rate became over the years, the past 15 years even. Since the improvement of our technology, and everybody has to prove who they are and the image of how they want to look to the outside world, and that pressure that builds up within you. But you completely like losing that connection to life And
Right.
this love that you just talked about, like
Yes.
just love what you do. And you said it completely right. We are not our jobs. We don't identify what we do.
And it's tough though. Let's be real. Let us all be
Yeah.
real here. Like, you know, I love the fact that this is such a cool space where we can really be honest about everything.
Please.
Like, you know, I mean, that is part of being human, right? Like feeling like we belong, like feeling like we're accepted, and we find a lot of like gratitude in what we do and achievement and status or whatever it may be. But at the core of it, like who you are, like when there's no one around, like those conversations you have with yourself, that relationship towards yourself, you know, before you try and change the world is so important. Like it's really so important. It's not a selfish thing. It's a self-love is often by many people misinterpreted. I feel like there's something powerful where you do learn to love yourself. Because I often, for many years, I hated myself and I didn't even realize it, you know, because I accepted the lies of what I inherited through my environment. And when you start changing that, and again, for me, there's a beautiful word. It's called worth. Worth, like when you understand, it's different to feeling entitled.
Yeah.
Because entitled says the world owes me something. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about being worthy, like knowing your worth, understanding that you're a child of God. At least that's what I believe, that we were created to be something special, that like no one's ever going to do what you can do in this lifetime. No one can do what I can do. We are all unique. We've all got a unique thumbprint. So the more we start realizing that worth, and the more you start seeing yourself as if you were that, like it's amazing what happens. I mean, one thing I can say about you, and I'd love to hear when this happened for you, is when I think of you, I think of joy. You're such a joyous person, and I know that must also be like a conscious choice. Like, did you grow up that way? Did you grow into that? Like, how did joy happen in your life?
In my life as a kid, I lost my mom when I was 8 years old, so that was not really happy for me. But my parents and also my grandma said I was, as a kid, always laughing and smiling. I just had that sunshine within me. But of course, then after that scenario and just growing up without a mom in that age, really, it was like I was kind of paralyzed. I just pretended I'm okay. I was doing that for my family, also for my dad, for them not to worry for me.
Right.
But then I started to realize later on, when I was in my 20s or even 25, I still could see certain habits and certain patterns that I was developing over the years. There's always building up that wall of perfection and the pressure that builds up within you because you cannot let it out because everybody thinks you're fine and you're okay. Yeah?
Right.
And then you see everybody out there just having a perfect life, and you're just like, what's wrong with me?
What's wrong with me?
What's wrong with me?
Literally, yeah.
And when you said the moments when we are just quiet with ourselves, a lot of people out there, they cannot do it. They cannot handle
They cannot
that.
sit to themselves.
They will like find the fastest way to distract themselves, either to entertainment, phones,
all sorts of
movies,
things.
bad boy.
No, but you know, like even food and like, you know, like everyone's got like a hectic habit. Everyone's got their like vice, but it's literally like, it's amazing how we lack the capacity to feel comfortable in our own skin, to sit down, to be quiet. We always feel like we gotta do something. And that actually prevents you from like building that capacity, building that presence. The very thing that makes life so special is presence. It's really being in the place you are at that moment. And it's tough. I don't know about you, but it was really tough for me being so goal driven.
Oh, absolutely.
Where every day became like a means to the end, which is the next goal. And then it's like, and then that shift started happening. It was like, no, the real life happens here in the moment. Like, what's today? Today's Wednesday, right? So, you know, like a Wednesday morning where it's like, it's the moments where ordinary life happens, and learning to love that. And, you know, in the beginning, I thought everything was a cliche in the beginning when people were like, ugh, it's the journey and the process. And I'm like, ugh, you know, like, don't even tell me, but it really is, man. When you start leaning into that.
And also you're scared that they're just telling something and it's not going to happen for you. And you don't know if you can really lean back, and it takes time, being patient.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's like, cool story, bro. But
Yeah.
you know, no. Yeah, it is amazing, and what is great is, isn't it a gift in life to be able to have that opportunity to grow? You know what I'm saying? It's like that's the human experience, right? Like we all are imperfect, we all make mistakes, but life is both, right? And once again, I just want to say, listen, I'm really sorry about your loss, like when you were younger. Like I think you and I also have connected, you know, in that field of our lives. Like I've also like suffered tremendous tragedy and loss, and it's so tough when you're so young.
Especially in, like, not even too long ago,
Short
like
space
in
of
one
time, yeah.
piece, just chunk, everything came together.
It was nuts, like 9 people in 2 years for
That
me,
is
and that's
amazing.
after I moved to a new country where I couldn't even be in, and not just 9 people, like the closest people in my
core.
life, except for my mom, you know, but everyone else, like, you know, it's just, it was intense. But I don't know how you feel about this, but it's a beautiful process that happens in grief where you are stripped away, like from so much nonsense, you know, because what matters at the end of the day, and like with you, I mean, heartbreaking that you were so young, and that's like a fire that burns away like all nonsense. And to find again, like when you turn, there's a beautiful book by Paulo Coelho called The Alchemist that I'm sure most of you know. Yes. But I love the idea of what alchemy is, you know. I mean, I think there's so many interpretations to that book, but I myself have hiked through Spain a couple of times, and that book becomes so real when you think of when you travel there, and I had my backpack and there's sheep in the fields. Oh, I got stories. But the beautiful thing is the word alchemy. It's turning lead into gold. In other words, for me, I love the process of life where you get to turn all those setbacks you had in your life, all your tragedy, all the things that didn't work out according to your plan. The fact that in this lifetime we have the opportunity through choice and intention to turn that lead into gold. It's amazing, right? Because where the final product is more than the initial product. Where you literally, they use a beautiful term in the book, transmutation, not even transformation, transmutation, where you're going to a whole nother level, you know, and that's kind of what this time has been, I think, for many of us in this pandemic. You know, I suffered a lot of loss on that front, and obviously, you know, same as you, right, moving to a new location. But it is, like, when you think of, like, and sorry that I'm throwing out the cliches, but like the fact that a caterpillar can become a butterfly, you know, it's not cheesy at all. If you think of that process, that the caterpillar literally pretty much dies to itself and completely takes on a new form. So I think for a lot of us, you know, and you were talking about as well, like it's so tough sometimes when you're comparing, it's compare and despair. But when you can take ownership of your journey, that despite the suffering you're going through, despite the pain, if you can take all of that and channel it, and just some days you're not going to feel right. Some days it's just about, all I have strength for is to stand. All I have strength for is literally to eat and keep going. Like, that's part of the journey where you're going to have days where you just put a big X in it, and that's just where you're at.
And sometimes also just pause and just
Literally.
be.
Just be and breathe.
Yeah.
You know?
And the most craziest thing happened to me when I always thought, oh, I have to go, I'm on the go. And then certain things don't happen the way I want it right now. And then I'm disappointed, I'm frustrated.
It's like that control thing.
Expectation, and you're like,
Yeah.
And then when you pause and you just let it happen, and you're just like, it's okay, I don't have to move fast today.
Wow.
That's when I received the most greatest
Experience.
emails, phone calls, had the greatest conversations with people, because I was not on my day-to-day struggle, hustle, getting it together. Like, actually, now also taking the time to talk with people on the street that I've just saw.
New experiences, eh?
Yeah.
And isn't that so important? Like, I think all of us need that, eh? We all need to be able to have new experiences and novel experiences. And this is exactly what you were saying earlier as well, like fostering a state of being where you're present. Because if you're not, you can't find the gifts that are there every day. Like today, like this is special. This isn't just something that happens every day. It's a moment where we really get to have a proper conversation, you know. And that's what I love, is that every day there's an opportunity for us, if we choose, to look for the gifts that are there.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think it's the balancing act, right? Because there is something to be said for having vision, having a game plan, but within that, to create that flexibility of wherever life's going to lead you, to be able to see the signs. You know?
Absolutely. And for those who find that video here, if you're not subscribed yet and you just found that randomly, then there is a message for you in this video.
Exactly.
And that's what this channel is all about. I want to inspire the young generation, people who lost their motivation, because it doesn't mean that you just, when you're younger, you don't have any pathway to go, or you have no idea what to do. Sometimes it happens like when you're 50 and you just thought you have your life together, and then everything like...
Age is relative. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I hope that that's changing, like with time to come, because I hope that fades away, because we are bigger than our age. Again, we're bigger than what we do. We are, you know, that nonsense that society's constructed of you've got to do X, Y, Z by a certain amount of time. Nonsense, man. Like, come and live life your own way. Like, you know, it's you know, I was just back home in South Africa for a couple of months, and you know, I was really astounded, like even with my mom, you know, she's retired now, and she retired quite early, but she's finding a whole new lease on life. She's like doing all sorts of things, like finding dancing, she's trying new things, she's got like a whole bunch of new friends, and I was like, that is awesome, that no matter your age, like there's new chapters, and that's exactly what life is. Life's too short, like you never know, and it's so important, right, to just, again, really get quiet and listen to this guy. What brings you joy? Like, what wakes you up? What are those activities that kind of, you know, bring back that magic you had as a kid when you were free and you weren't even thinking? You just did it, you know? So I'm on that wicket right now. Wicket, by the way, is a cricket term. I'm from South Africa. So when you say a good wicket, it means you're on a good road.
Good road, okay. So you were just talking about you being a kid and like letting out that inner kid and that joy that you experience. What was it for you when you were a kid? If you just think back, is there like any specific job that you wanted to do when you're like a grown man, like you are right now?
I'm a grown man. No, I got to tell you, it's so funny because I did a whole bunch of things before I finally found my way back to what I'm doing now. But I've got to be honest, when I was like a young kid, I did think of being an actor, you know, which is absolutely nuts. But I tried everything to not be one, and somehow it found me, you know, because I've got an honors in economics. You know, I did get an honors in producing as well, and I still produce. But you know, I love the bottom line for me as a kid growing up in Africa, because my grandmother worked with HIV/AIDS orphans, so I've got very special memories when I was deep in Africa, not just South Africa, but like up north, where my gran would take me to play with the orphans, and often what would happen is, you know, we'd play soccer and everybody would have a nice meal, but then late afternoon in Africa, when I think of Africa, I think of trees and just open spaces, and what would happen is all these kids, you know, that were my newfound friends, my gran would be like, literally tell them a story, you know, and then I'd have to, on my feet, like at a very young age, tell these kids a story which became like a parable. So, you know, so that lesson was almost like this power in storytelling. And that was very...
Which already makes you a director, producer, and everything.
I don't know what I am. Like in this day and age, we're a content creator. Oh, man, I don't even know what the heck. But there's power in conversation. There's power in story. There's power in inspiring people through your story, which is literally what this whole channel is about. So that kind of stuck with me, and I guess also on another note, like you know, given my circumstances, acting was a real opportunity for me to have a voice. In you know, it was because I sadly can't say that I had a voice in my home environment as much as I had when acting was a tool for me to step out of myself and say, hey, my opinion matters, my voice matters. And that was a great journey for me, you know. So it's crazy, when you think back as a kid, and to think this actually happened. This is insane.
That's beautiful. But because like many people that I interviewed for my channel, they had these crazy thoughts about what they want to be when they're like grown. As I said, somebody he's into fitness now, but he wanted to be a homicide detector. You know, like the things that kids have in their mind.
Right, exactly. That's a badass job. Like, that's pretty cool.
Absolutely. But I think you're actually the first person also that is doing now big time what he was thinking when he was a kid.
It's crazy. You know, what's really funny is a couple of weeks ago, I get like out of the blue. I don't know if everybody's still connected with their elementary school friends. In South Africa, we called it primary school. But I had a primary school friend, and when I was like 11, there was like a school magazine. And they did like an interview. The Germans as well, and it's so funny. I'm not going to share the picture on this thing because I look very strange. But maybe I will.
Maybe he's like,
maybe I will.
send it to me and I will put
exactly.
it right now.
You put it in the comments below. But anyways, like I had crazy curly hair and I thought I was cool. I looked like NSYNC who like ate too many burgers at the time. But basically, I remember they asked like, where do you see yourself in like 10, 15 years, and I said, I see myself working in Hollywood, which is nuts. And I remember, yeah, it's insane, but also the people along the way, because I remember we did things like they called it a speech festival where I had to do little poems. I don't even have like 2 front teeth, and I do this poem about I think it was the concrete mixer where he huffs and he puffs or something like that.
Yeah.
And that woman somehow, who was like the adjudicator, she's like, this kid is going to Hollywood. And it's funny how those little seeds, as you grow up, kind of blossom, you know, from people, or what you choose to
and it's encouragement.
Yes.
Here and there, you see things.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, for me, it started all with Hollywood. I mean, I had this thought always since I'm 11 years old. I knew I'm going to live here. I've never been here before, never seen anything specifically, didn't know anybody that has been here. But then after I had this intuition, I started to see many things and I started to watch a lot of MTV. And I was just so
MTV
inspired by MTV Cribs and how these
I was like Celebrity Deathmatch.
Exactly, me too. Yeah. And what else? They had like West Coast Custom, Pimp My Ride. So these things, that was my shit. I knew this is like pretty cool, and that was motivating me, even though I never saw myself doing what they were doing, but I just knew this type of lifestyle. That's what I feel is life.
Exactly.
Living, enjoying. So these little
seeds along the way.
Seeds and inspirations that you get, they encourage you and they make you feel like I can do it too.
Yeah. And it's brave, you know, and it's nothing against. Look, I think everyone's on their own journey, and I get it, you know, like sometimes you think you want to know like where you want to be, and life takes on its own journey, but it's really, it takes a lot of courage to be true to yourself, because a lot of us don't know who we are, you know, so like that's the first part. I think it's really experiencing and living life, trying things that you never thought. It's amazing, right? Like I'm sure most of you watching as well, same with you. It's like when you think, I'm not going to like that, but you just, how will you know if you don't try?
Exactly.
You know, and like once, and that's why being present in the moment and saying yes to things is so important, because in that process you're discovering things. But yeah, man, what a journey. You've taken me down a good memory lane.
Yeah,
seeing a lot of imagery. Yeah.
But the thing is, you know, everybody can preach on the internet as much as they want. We can now talk about all the things and these amazing realizations we had. You will be out there maybe watching this right now, don't even know what the heck is going on in your life, and you're just annoyed by all these people talking about their realizations and these motivational speakers and all that stuff. Because when you're not at the right mindset right now where you're at, and if you feel like you are not ready yet for this journey, then that video might not be for this moment.
Exactly.
But maybe you find it in 2 years and you're like, this is exactly where I am right now.
Yeah, I think it's so important what you're saying, because listen, life is never just going to be plain sailing. Like, we have to embrace both. We have to embrace the evening and we have to embrace the day. Like, it goes hand in hand. Both of them are interwoven. And you have to, like we all, whether it's not happened yet, whether it's happening right now. I love what someone once said, is that rock bottom is at least a good place to start from, because everything from there is like uphill, and it's pretty nuts when you really get to see yourself butt naked, no one around, no one to help you out. Like, who are you when everything that you think you know, everything you took your pride in, all your comfort gets stripped away?
Yeah.
Who are you then? Because it's easy to come and chat when you're on a good season and whatever, but like those moments where there's nothing romantic about it, it's freaking crazy. I want to say that is okay.
Yeah.
And that it's important to have those moments and to embrace that, because inevitably winter never remains forever. Like a new season will come. Like the time sometimes feels crazy. But for those of you right now who might be feeling like you've lost hope and feeling like all your plans you had, all your expectations you had of where you wanted to be in life are just not playing out the way you did, and you're like this close to giving up or forgetting about the dream, like there's a place where, as Anna said earlier, it's where stop, be still, surrender. Because what else can we do as human beings, right? When you've done the best you can, and I believe that all of us do the best we can given our circumstances, all you can do is trust the process. And there's a beautiful word, and I used to hate hearing this word, but it's a good word. Because what happens is we try and manipulate life and people and our plans. But when you surrender, to be like, listen, I'm just going to trust the process. That to me is what real belief is. It's not wishful thinking. It's not like being a beggar. It's being like, you know what, like I trust that somehow all this nonsense, all this mess that I'm in, all these sacrifices I've made, all these setbacks are going to lead me to the next step and the next step and the next step. Because isn't it, I mean, listen, if you and I didn't at some point in our lives foresee what is going to come, we would never have been motivated to take that thing. That's, you have to see something. You have to believe it. Like you don't have to have the most confidence. I didn't have a lot of, I'm still working on my confidence. But you've got to be able to believe it yourself, even if it's like small, even if it's a small amount, to be able to move forward, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then also when, that's a interesting sentence I was reading, I don't even know if it was Tony Robbins, but when you're in a rough moment right now and you think like it's just the world is ending and okay, so you want to stop right here and just stay in that horrible moment, or you just keep fighting to get through it.
Exactly.
And that
You
just
don't
makes
come
you
this
stronger.
far to come this far. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Absolutely right. So no, I think that is pretty interesting, and again, like I see so many similarities, like in my personal journey, but also the other guests that I interview, and everybody has their own little struggles and demons that we have to fight in order to get what we envision for ourselves. And sometimes that vision even changes. Sometimes you want to be maybe an actor, but then on your way there, the people you meet, you see, oh my God, there's so much more out there, and I want to go in this path or this path. And
which is beautiful, right?
Yeah.
But the big thing is getting into motion, not just being stuck, not just letting bad times like hold you down. It's being in, like, that's a beautiful thing about being a human being. We are given, whether we like it or not, choosing not to do something is also, but we're given the power of what they call agency, right? Like we have the power to choose. No matter what, you got the power to not choose, but that in itself is a choice.
Yeah.
So it's really like, I know it's hectic, and I cannot even fathom what most of you are going through. And you know, we've all, and I haven't even shared an iota of, you know, the kind of journey that I've been in. I'm sure Anna's exactly the
I
same.
might have to invite him a second time.
But you know, like that's the thing. It's like there is a point where no matter what, no matter who, no one can take away your power to choose. And I'm not saying that you can predict what's happening to you. I'm not saying that it's fair what's happening to you, but I am saying, and I love, this gets quoted a lot, but I really do love that book, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And it's a very powerful book, you know, about the concentration camps. But what happened there, and I mean, like, there were horrific events in history all across the world, but the point is no one, that can take everything from you, but no one can take away how you respond to circumstances. That's still your choice. Even in the worst of circumstances for all of us, right? It's, if you can start there by taking your power back there, you've got power, whether you like it or not. You might not think so, but like, if anything, chew on that for a second, to where you take a moment to say, I, me, this guy, this lady, I have power. And your power is starting with choice by choice. It's starting by saying, you know what, I'm worthy to be healthy. And then again, you choose your way forward. I am worthy to be able to express my opinion, no matter where you come from. Where it's like, you are worthy of having a point of view. And again, choosing to stand up for yourself when you used to not standing up for yourself. You know, I think it's that combination of once you start playing with that in the sense of, wow, my choice, many people also call it intention, my intention's this, but that's when you start building brick by brick by brick. You know, I enjoyed watching, it was pretty cool, I don't know if you saw it, but Will Smith's series that he released on YouTube where he had to get into shape. And
I saw like on social media like this process, but I haven't seen the series.
I would really recommend it. It's a fun watch in the sense that it's probably the most vulnerable you'll ever see Will Smith. And he talks about the mask, you know, that he had to project to Hollywood, but he gets really raw and real. Talks about his childhood, his relationship with his father, and I'm excited the time that you and I are living in because I feel like people are waking up to their power. We're not shying away from our faults and our but we're using that to kind of like move forward. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
We've been talking now a lot about who we know, who we are, the worth of ourselves in this universe. But how do you feel about how society and our environment manage to control kind of how we really are and what we show who we are? And does that change the perspective, what we want to pursue in life?
That's a big conversation, and I think you know, we were talking about it earlier, but just like the influence of technology and social media and everything, like whether we like it or not, like we are conditioned. We are creatures that are conditioned. We are creatures of habit. As much as I've just gone on the rant on the power of choice, which could be a positive thing, in the same flip of the coin, it could be a very negative thing being a human being when you just kind of constantly making the same choices over and over again, when we're being conditioned, especially by social media, in terms of there's like an attack, it's like warfare on identity and who you are. In many ways, the economy is based on the sense that they want us all to be like sheep. And I'm not speaking as a conspiracy theorist, but just if you look at history, right? Like there's something about where you should just fit in, you should shut up, you should never ask something, you should just look this way, act this way, think this way. And
just to interrupt you real quick, even that sentence that you just said, not that I'm saying I'm a conspiracy theorist, that even is a condition from society, like, oh, you're just a conspiracy theorist, and you don't want to fit into that, like,
in that box, you're right.
So why, in my eyes, somebody that is a conspiracy theorist is somebody that seeks the truth, just somebody that's curious and to know more about what's really going on.
That's a good perspective, exactly. Yeah, and again, also like the use of language even, and how we put certain connotations on things and how important that is. But yeah, I do see that. I think like more than ever, you and I have a responsibility in terms of choosing what we consume, right? Like choosing what we allow through our ears, through our eyes, through our mouths, you know, in the sense of nutrition, mental food, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I think it's hard. I think we're exhausted because it's just such a bombardment of so much information. Things happen, you don't know what the truth is anymore. You know, and to even find legitimate sources of truth, and also sometimes you don't even know where you stand on the topic, right? Like you know, because you don't have enough information about it. You know, like also with so much. I mean, it's tough enough to be a human being and survive and pay rent. You know, sometimes you don't have the time to inform yourself, and I think it's dangerous because what happens is we jump on the bandwagon of like secondhand information. So I do see that more and more as life progresses and as technology is driving society more than ever. This is the first time in history that we're at this point where it's exponential growth of tech. You know, if we just even talk about our short lifetimes of what we've seen, it's unbelievable how it's like part of our lives. Let alone what we're going to see in the future with cybernetics, the virtual world that's going to be more important for some people than the real world.
Scary.
That's scary stuff, man.
Scary
That's scary stuff. Yeah. But I do think again, doesn't it link back to that same thing to keep coming back to
yourself,
grounding yourself in reality, you know, before jumping in that. But it's tougher and tougher. Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot. I mean, we already talked about you like knowing already as a kid, like you want to be an actor, and now you're here in Hollywood, but also being so aware, especially also through the loss of the people that you just lost within the last 2 years, just that realization how how valuable life is,
Oh.
and that you have to live your life, and
Every
really
day.
you owe it not only to yourself but
Yes.
also to your ancestors, to God, and to
Yes.
you just want to like double up
Yeah.
just because you want to
Yes.
show them, hey, that's what I'm here
Exactly.
for, that's what I do.
Exactly.
You
I
work.
like what you said. Sorry to interrupt, but like you've just touched on a thing. A big lesson I've learned the last 2 years is there's a gift in suffering and in death. And what's that gift that people leave? It's like that beautiful scene in Dead Poets Society when Robin Williams takes all the boys and he says, "Lean in, gents,"
Mm-hmm.
and he goes, "Carpe
Yeah.
and they're like, what the heck's going on? Carpe diem. Literally seize,
Mm-hmm.
capture, take control of this moment. In other words, be freaking present, because those guys, he says, I think he's like, they're feeding daffodils, boys. And that's exactly it, right? Like right now, if you're breathing, if you can hear this and see this, it's a gift we've been given, right? To live, man. And that's the gift in death and suffering. It's to live more intentionally, live harder, to live more authentically.
If you really know or not, or if you want to believe or not, but we choose to be here.
Yes.
There's no contract, and we definitely, that's what I truly
Yes.
believe in. We actually chose the time we are
Yeah.
going to be here on this planet.
That's
and
it.
that is just amazing. And then also, that moment when you connect with people where you feel like you just feel like you know each other so well, and not even in a romantic way, but just like certain people you just click and
Connect
you're
with.
like, that feels so home, that
Yeah.
feels so familiar to me. And definitely believe in soul connections on this earth.
No, it's amazing the conversations that have been happening and what people are waking up to, like all around the world. It's a really exciting time, because I feel, I don't know, like globally, I mean, I guess that is the upside of the pandemic. I feel like a lot of people have been doing that kind of work, in the sense of really asking, what is up? What is this journey about? And what I love about that as well is you can't fake that connection, and not just with people, but with opportunities, and with all sorts of things too. It's amazing when you just literally again start saying yes to people and the things, and it's amazing when you trust that who you meet and who you connect with, and like a kid again. Sorry about the kid thing, but I love the fact that kids don't have to ask 10,000 questions. You don't have to convince them. They are honest. They tell you exactly what's up, and they do what their heart says right now, and they are present. And there's
Isn't there a saying, kids and drunks, they tell the truth?
That is true. That is true. Yeah.
That is amazing. So you've been in all these amazing movies. You just talked about the movie with Megan Fox. There are people like, oh my God, Megan Fox. I think people react to her so because she was more known as that, influencer type of beauty queen, and then ended up in all these amazing movies and being a badass. And just like
being a badass.
Exactly. That's how you get not only movie fans that are just like into actors like Denzel and Will Smith. Like you also get like the modern kids that like watch the hypes, watch the news right now. So how is it for you working with a superstar like Megan Fox? How is she? That's the question everybody has.
Absolutely. No, listen, what is amazing is